My colleague Tamanna also caught up with former Economic Affairs Secretary Shaktikanta, who during his time in North Block was very vocal about how ratings agencies have been ignoring India's reform drive. Tamanna started by asking him what he made of this big ratings bump up, given the implications that demonetization and GST have had on the economy.
No, this is definitely a clear recognition of the kind of reforms which India has undertaken over the last 3.5 years. Now, whether it is GST or demonetization or liberalization of FDI or the Aadhaar-backed direct benefit transfer with regard to subsidies or the introduction of the bankruptcy and insolvency code. Now, the list is very long. It's certainly a recognition of all that. And we had been interacting, I had been personally interacting with the Moody's, and my colleagues and we were interacting. And we had pointed out to them that, look, the ground reality is there is a lot of changes taking place. There's a lot of governance reforms also happening, and the rating agencies need to recognize that. But Moody's had their own point of view. Their point of view was that they would like the reforms to take, more roots, deeper roots. And we had our point of view, wherein we had said that the reforms are very robust. And the fact that now Moody's have recognized, it is certainly a clear endorsement of the reforms which India has undertaken.
Mr. Das, since you have explained that you also played an active role in sort of convincing Moody's to do what they should have, in your view, done a long time ago, what do you think has led to this move? What has effectively convinced Moody's to change that rating?
You see, it is not an individual's effort. I think it's the effort of the entire government. All departments, all ministries of government have done their bit. For example, the ease of, the improvement in the ease of doing business. It naturally is an outcome of the contribution made by so many ministries across various sectors. So similarly here also, the reforms, when we talk about, reforms were undertaken by various ministries. And now perhaps Moody's are more than satisfied that reforms in India are here to stay, and reforms in India will sustain over a period of time, and the impact of the reforms are going to be long term. For instance, they have pointed out that the combined outcome, the combined effect of demonetization and GST has been a move towards formalization of the Indian economy. There is a recognition that the fiscal parameters are also very robust. So it is an overall recognition. They are somewhat behind the curve, and but it is good that finally it has been recognized by the Moody's.
What do you see as the immediate impact of this? Of course, we will get better terms in our loans, our international borrowings and all of that. But it has also been pointed out that the rupee will strengthen. That could hurt exports more, and exports are already in a fragile space. Do you agree with that theory?
You see, with regard to the overall impact, it will certainly, it will definitely sort of, the message to the, the message to the investors across the world and the message to domestic investors is that India is in the right direction. The reforms are in the right direction. GST-related problems, issues have been more or less resolved. The country is on the path of economic reforms which are taking deeper roots. So far as government is concerned, I am sure this will motivate the government further to go faster on the path of economic reforms and other policy initiatives which government has been taking. So net, I would see that it should augur well for the business climate and investment climate in India. Now, with regard to the rupee, now the strength of the rupee, it is hovering today around, let's say, 65 or so. And you see, exports, the fact that the exports are doing well in certain segments and not doing well in certain segments, there are multiplicity of factors. It's a complex, it's a complex mix of reasons. The strength or the weakness of rupee is one of the factors in, in that mix of factors. So therefore, if the rupee becomes stronger, as you are pointing out, I am sure as the monetary policy authority, Reserve Bank will take necessary measures to see that the rupee is at the correct level. Although the Reserve Bank, as far as I know, doesn't have any predetermined idea that the rupee should be at such and such level. But then central banks across the world do play a role in keeping the currency at a level which makes the economy competitive. And I'm sure the Reserve Bank of India will do whatever is necessary in this regard.
Does it also increase our challenges, sir, on staying on the path of fiscal consolidation and ensuring that there are no slippages in the 3.2% fiscal deficit target?
See, I'll tell 2 points. First point is that the 3.2% target for the current year. Current year, a lot depends on the kind of revenues that GST will bring in for the government. There is some uncertainty there, but with resolution of most of the issues involved, I think GST revenues will become stable. So everything depends on the GST revenues. Even if there is a marginal shortfall in GST revenues, I am sure the government will have a fallback option to make it up. And if the GST revenue shortfall is huge, then of course the story may be slightly different. But then it will be too early, it will be too sort of premature and too presumptuous on my part to rush to a conclusion. Having said that, the second point I would like to make is that the target of 3% fiscal deficit next year is very much doable. By next year, the GST revenues would have stabilized. The government will be in a better position to have a clearer picture of GST revenues, and with the kind of the kind of expenditure requirements that we have, taking all these factors into account, I think next year 3.2% will definitely be doable. And whether it's a pressure on the government is not the issue. I think government on its own has adopted a path of fiscal prudence, and there is no reason why the government will deviate from it.
Just one last question, Mr. Das. In terms of the reforms process, and that process has been recognized in a sense by Moody's today, what are the next challenges or the next priorities you see for the government?
You see, two aspects. One is that the remaining reform agenda, and of course, reform agenda is always ever growing, because as you move in terms of time, there will be newer challenges, there will be newer possibilities, there are newer policy options. One is to continue on the path of economic and structural reforms. Second point is to continue to adhere to the path of fiscal prudence. The third point is that the large number of impactful policy decisions which government has taken, whether it is the completion of the PMGSY, that is the Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana, that is the rural roads program ahead of time, or rural electrification, or whether it is with regard to implementation of various other infrastructure projects, the railway projects, or the Bharatmala project. I think all those targets, the implementation will have to stick to their, to the targeted timelines, and ensure that the implementation continues to be qualitatively good and continues to maintain to the various milestones in terms of time.
All right. Thank you so much for speaking with us, Mr. Shaktikanta Das.